So today we're going to talk about Francis Bacon, which is giving me an incredible craving, and I'm sure that was an annoying last name to have. However, Bacon is often tied in with Shakespeare, and many people think that Bacon actually wrote a lot of Shakespearean plays, many of which people suggest that Shakespeare, who came from a very modest educational background, they didn't think he was capable of writing all those plays. So many people think Bacon actually wrote a lot of these things. I don't know where I stand on that, because people can be very smart and articulate without having a formal education or coming from the upper middle class. Shakespeare didn't have the formal education or come from the upper middle class, so that's why many people associate Bacon having the ability to produce the ideas and linguistic genius of Shakespearean plays. Okay, so Francis Bacon lived from 1561 to 1626, and he suggested that our thinking becomes distorted, which he called idols of the mind. Idols of the mind. This leads to our thinking becoming clouded and our reasoning unclear. So Bacon, in his work, was interested in the use of scientific knowledge for people to know better and to have a better control of their environment. So Bacon was interested in the use of scientific knowledge. And he suggested that there were 4 idols of the mind. So Bacon suggests that we strive to be impartial, objective, and open-minded in our thinking and reasoning. Open-minded. But Bacon suggests our minds can be distorted, which clouds our ability to reason clearly and objectively. And I think we already know that our personal bias, our frame of reference, our biographical history distorts, changes, modifies the way we look at things. And inherently, it's difficult to separate that. I have a certain bias towards certain things, politically, emotionally, and that's going to distort the way I see things. Now, Bacon suggests our mind can be distorted, which clouds our ability to reason clearly and objectively. I just repeated that. He suggests that there are 4 idols of the mind, or 4 things that provide false appearances. So they are the idol of the mind, idol of the cave, idols of the marketplace, and idols of the theater. So, idols of the tribe. They suggest that there are deceptive beliefs inherent in our minds. Okay, so we are born with deceptive beliefs, or they're automatically in our minds. So we have a common tendency to exaggerate and distort the way things look to us. Sometimes I see people who say, "Oh, I'm so tired. I didn't get any sleep last night." Well, did you really lie awake with your eyes open for 8 consecutive hours? Or did you sleep on and off? And for some reason, I think we crave attention by saying how tired or how sick we are. I think that might be a pet peeve of mine. Do we distort how violent something is? My definition of violence might be different from your definition of violence. And if you ever read the poem 6 Blind Men and an Elephant, we kind of distort based on how we perceive a certain object. So the 6 blind men touched the elephant, and one says it's like a wall, one says it's like a spear, because they're only touching parts of the elephant. Okay. So it suggests that humans have a false mirror, which sends us images that are irregular or distorted. So we have a common tendency to exaggerate and distort the way things look to us. Ideals of the cave. I guess the cave is a common metaphor in philosophy. It suggests that our minds is like a cave, or like a cave. Then we have thoughts that roam about in a dark cave that are modified by education, habits, environments, and by accident. Suggests that we have thoughts that roam about in a dark cave that are modified by education, habits, environment, and by accident. So it says we essentially have a bias towards our own interests, and we interpret all our learning with this lens. So, for example, I am interested in sociology, and I see that world, or our world, through the lens of sociology, how it benefits the rich, how things are detrimental to the poor, how things serve a purpose, how things need to get better from a functionalist perspective. Maybe I see things from a coaching perspective, and how things are that life is a game and everything's competitive. The example I give on your worksheet here is that a chemist sees chemistry in all things. The ideals of the marketplace. So Bacon suggests that humans use sloppy words. Sloppy words. I wish there was a better term than sloppy words, because that sounds slang to me. I think sloppy words would be a good band name, though. So anyways, that Bacon uses sloppy words that are ill-defined or ambiguous. So it's the idea that humans form their thoughts in words, but the words become substitutes for their thoughts. So it's the idea that people can out-talk each other. And sometimes we see politicians try to out-talk others, and then we think the person who out-talked the other wins that debate. And I think you can see it in your everyday interactions. When you have someone who uses large vocabulary, we instantly associate them with being intellectual and correct because they've out-talked us. And that's not necessarily the case. So that is the idols of the marketplace. Idols of the theater. So Bacon warns us over the acceptance of systems of knowledge, which he compares to theatrical productions presenting fiction. So when we accept systems of knowledge, it's like watching a play or a show's interpretation of knowledge. So if we take these things, these idols, and put them into practice, here's the advice that Bacon suggests we should do. So we should be aware of built-in tendencies that human nature has, that we interpret things in a biased manner. So recognize the fact that your frame of reference, your personal biographical history provides a bias in how we interpret information. So maybe how we interpret literature, how you grew up, how your parents raised you could have a factor in how you interpret parenting situations, how you interpret To Kill a Mockingbird, and how Atticus treats Jem and Scout. Bacon suggests we should strive for open-mindedness and overcome our long-held beliefs. I always thought the way I learned was the best way for others to learn. So I think I have a bias in my teaching. The way I teach is the way I learn, but I need to be open-minded to strive to appeal to multiple intelligences and to use diversified or differentiated instruction, because not all people learn like I do. We need to examine word choice and critically interpret the meaning of words. So we need to look at rhetoric and examine doublespeak or Orwellian use, or an Orwellian approach to dissect what words people are using. And then we need to look at traditional systems of thought and examine the rationale of these traditions. So why do these traditions come into play? Why is something, a commonly held belief. Now, outside of Bacon, or in the spirit of Bacon, there's other ways our thinking can become distorted. So, in addition to Bacon's ideas, our thinking can be distorted by stereotyping other people and cultures. Stereotyping other people and cultures, which is so difficult because in social science, we tend to speak in generalizations, which often lead to stereotypes. So I struggle with that a little bit. Our self-centered thinking, peer pressure, and pressures to conform to societal pressures, and you'll see that momentarily in the Asch conformity experiment. And having a confirmation bias, where we accept information to confirm our beliefs and disregard information that contradicts our bias. So I always thought, going back to what another example is, I always thought students learn the way I learned. And a lot of research is coming out suggesting that we need to learn, or students best learn with cooperative learning, working in groups. And I don't like necessarily relinquishing control of my classroom and having students work in groups. Maybe that's my introvertedness. Maybe it's just me losing control of the classroom. But so I've ignored a lot of the evidence that suggests that you need to use cooperative learning strategies in your teaching practice. So I have disregarded that information, but now I'm kind of aware of that. All right, so we'll put these ideas into practice, and hopefully these ideas will become more clear momentarily.